Movie begins with a boy named Timothy. He wandered to a French village, and among the villagers he saw a beautiful girl named Josephine. Josephine thought Timothy was dirty and disgusting. Despite being away from him, she felt Timothy was following her. While following her, he went to Josephine's house and spied on her constantly. Later, while following her everywhere, he saw a boy named Paul who would marry Josephine. He was spending day and night outside Josephine's house and began to observe every move of her. One night when he had the opportunity, he sneaked into her house secretly. Timothy had a power with which he could hypnotize and control anyone, and with his power he controlled Josephine's dog and spent the whole night in that house. The following day, while pretending to be a deaf man, Timothy met Josephine's father, who never stopped helping people experiencing poverty. Seeing Timothy's condition, he trusted his drama and gave him a place to stay at his house. He understood that Timothy was educated, and meanwhile he could not understand his drama. Josephine felt nasty towards Timothy, however her attention was more on Timothy than Paul for some reason, and as soon as Timothy got a chance, he hypnotized Josephine to get her into control. He told Josephine's father that he knows the game of magic and he can also see the future. After saying that, Timothy started writing some valid words to hypnotize people. Slowly he did different acts and completely controlled Josephine's mind, and Josephine could not even understand what was happening to her. She felt restless and left. However, the trouble for her had just begun. The following day she started behaving strangely, and her father thought that she might be sick. She refused to spend time with Paul, and after a while she looked at Timothy, who was still roaming around her. She was scared and she tried to escape from his eyes, however she could not do this. After some time, Timothy entered her house again, and after completing his game of hypnotism, he made Josephine cook food. Not only that, he forced Josephine to lose consciousness so that she could not understand anything. After that, he forced Josephine to take advantage of her, and she removed her dress, and without knowing it she got intimate with him. After some time, when she came to her senses, Josephine remembered everything that had happened to her, and she started to feel guilty, and then suddenly, for some unknown reason, she went to see Timothy as if he had pulled her to him. Despite having fear and hatred in her mind, she continued to follow Timothy, and with him she reached an unknown house where Timothy told everyone that he and Josephine were married. Seeing Josephine, all the people in the house were scared for once. However, Timothy said to them that she was mentally weak like him. For once Josephine tried to ask for help, but Timothy again trapped her in his magic, using her like a puppet. Timothy now started to scare that family, and because of the fear of hypnotism, no one was able to help Josephine. Later, day and night, Josephine was tortured. The family couldn't see Josephine suffer anymore, so the family threw Timothy out of the house. After that, when finally Timothy was away, after getting rid of Timothy, they tried to cure Josephine from the magic. However, Josephine's condition started to deteriorate and she was feeling worse, and then they understood that only Timothy could break the spell. They accepted defeat and called Timothy back home. After this, he calmed Josephine down and took her out of the house. He kept wandering in the mountains with Josephine. Meanwhile, Josephine has to listen to him and do whatever he orders her to do. He kept taking advantage of her every day, and he would get intimate with her while Josephine couldn't do anything to stop him, and even if she wanted, Josephine couldn't save herself from Timothy. Slowly she became part of a life with only dirt and regret. Later, after walking on foot for many days, Josephine was tired and couldn't walk, and Timothy didn't listen, and just like every day, he would forcefully use her and get intimate with her. One day, Josephine somehow managed to ask for help from a man. Her bad luck meant the man had lost his mental balance, and that's why Josephine had to return to Timothy. One day, some unknown goons attacked Timothy, but they could not do anything more than just hurt him. That day, Josephine found out that Timothy often gets hurt, and he has also killed a human. After wandering for several weeks, they both reached a place where they could become part of a wedding and get good food to eat. Meanwhile, the man Josephine hated the most, she has started loving him, and Timothy was surprised to know that as a token of trust, she asked Timothy to hurt her on her shoulder. However, it was all just Josephine's plan. As soon as she felt that he had won Timothy's trust, she tried to run away from him at the first chance. This time she did not stop and reached the house screaming for help. The two people in that house succeeded in saving her from Timothy, and Josephine started telling him everything, and suddenly she was unconscious and stayed in that house. However, late at night Timothy again hypnotizes her using his magic. He told her to come with him and Josephine became a puppet again. The situation got so bad that Josephine started loving Timothy and she started trying to discover what Timothy saw in Josephine's eyes, and while hypnotizing her, meanwhile Timothy told her that he didn't see anything in her. Then Josephine told him she was not even afraid of death while standing on the edge of a cliff. With that joke of Josephine, Timothy understood that Josephine's mental state was not stable, and out of fear he saved Josephine from death later. Just like Timothy, Josephine also went to a stranger's house and started stealing from them, and willingly she started living a life she did not want. Timothy started to regret what he had done to her, and he took her to the man who had taught him how to hypnotize people. Timothy told that man that he wanted to spend his life with Josephine, and now Josephine herself was ready to spend her life with him. Later, while trying to treat Timothy, she started caring for him every day. Meanwhile, she was no longer a puppet and stayed with him for some days. Josephine went to a nearby village and came back to him again with a doctor, and the doctor said that Timothy must go to the hospital for treatment. Suddenly that night some policemen arrived because of that doctor and arrested Timothy. Moreover, Josephine saw her father after months, and her father felt relieved after seeing her. She saved her daughter, took her home, and put Timothy in prison. Timothy lost his hand due to the injury, but Josephine was completely fine. One day the jailer called Timothy to himself and started asking him questions about Josephine because he could not understand how Timothy convinced Josephine to go with him, because neither Timothy looked good nor would anyone want to go near him. He believed that Timothy had forced her to go with him. At the same time, Timothy said that Josephine herself wanted to go away from the house with him. He did hypnotize her, but Josephine came after him willingly. Some witnesses' statements proved that Timothy had hypnotized Josephine and she would always follow him in fear, and even after being afraid of him she began like a puppet. However, in response to that statement, Timothy believed he could hypnotize anyone even if it were illegal. He said that he forced her for the first time, and then Josephine willingly came to him and she was feeling good about being with him. After questioning Josephine about Timothy, the police discovered that Josephine was following him after hearing Timothy's voice and seeing his eyes, and she was utterly unconscious when she was doing that. The jailer found her statement wrong because it was impossible that Josephine was always under Timothy's control for so many months. Meanwhile, Josephine was also not completely clean. She had some desires that she wanted to fulfill, so she followed Timothy at her will, and over time she also stopped resisting Timothy's forcefully controlling her. She does not want to believe this truth because she does not want to feel embarrassed, so as proof of her statement she showed the mark of the wound that she had asked Timothy to put on her shoulder. Meanwhile, the jailer does not fully believe her words, so he calls a hypnotist who will examine whether Josephine can be imprisoned or not, and the hypnotist test proves that no one can imprison Josephine. Time passed, but Josephine's father lived in regret. He was worried about why Josephine had not run away from Timothy when she got a chance, but Josephine did not answer his question. During the hearing in court, Josephine said that whatever happened to her was against her will, while the truth was something else. In the end, Timothy accepted that her statement was true for Josephine's love, and that's how he saved Josephine from embarrassment in front of the world. Later, Josephine continued living her life while her father always lived in fear, and then one day Josephine discovered she would be a mother before his death. Josephine's father got her married to Paul, and with Paul and her child, Josephine started to prepare to go to Paris. Before leaving, she told the jailer that she wants to see Timothy for once, and after fulfilling one of his wishes, he was sent to Timothy. Seeing his child, Timothy was pleased, and he also named that child Timothy. While leaving, Josephine wore Timothy's ring, proving she would always love him, and with Paul she left for Paris. With that, the movie ends here. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe. See you next time. Take care.